Come on, living stone. We gotta go on and on and on. Together we can make it. We gotta go on and on and on. Come on, living stone.
Knocks it through. Mullen bursting into the box. Josh Mullen.
Together we can make it.
Mullen's ball across, it's turned in! It's Pittman who's got it! Livingston leads!
Road is long.
Can they get the ball back in? O'Brien.
Lead! And Livingston have the lead!
Man, can score.
If we march together.
The full-time whistle blows and David Hayes celebrates! And the Livingston fans join in exultation.
Come on, living stone.
Livingston have the lead against Rangers, and they are certainly rising to a few occasions on their return to the top flight in Scotland.
Come on, living stone. We gotta go.
We're delighted to have Strana Apparel as sponsors of Talk Livi. UK based with a Swedish soul, we are Strana. Strana is an independent fashion brand from Scotland who create high quality and stylish attire for on and off the terraces. Inspired by terrace culture, lifestyle and music, all their clothing is designed using quality materials and workmanship to combine the very best style and fit. All of this means you get a premium quality fashion at affordable prices while enjoying a simple and secure service.
As a bonus for Talk Livy listeners, you can get 10% off your order using the code TalkLivy at the checkout. We'll also have some exclusive giveaways during the season, so keep your eyes peeled on our socials for those too. And thanks to Starner for sponsoring Talk Livy.
I'm delighted to welcome Livi Manager Davie Martindale back onto Talk Livi. Davie, did you manage to actually get away? The period of time between the end of the season and coming back in for pre-season is probably the shortest you've experienced.
Yeah, but it wasn't any different from what I normally do, to be fair, because you're constantly working. I was away to Greece with Martha and Georgia. Managed to get away. I think it's important that you try and spend a bit of family time together, because it's the one sacrifice in football that you make that probably goes a wee bit unseen, the amount of time you spend away from your family. And even when you're with the family, you're not really there.
Aye.
Yeah, speak to my wife, she'd probably give you paint a better picture. But managed to get away, but you're still working. If you don't, you can't not work in football. You can't not in this position. You're constantly working away.
You're sitting at the pool watching highlight reels of players potentially coming in and stuff like that.
To be fair, I get up and get to beds, and a position is quite close to the pool for the wee one, but quite close to the cafe. I'll sit underneath with a coffee and a laptop, jump in and out the pool, back to the laptop, back to the WhatsApp, so stuff like that. So I strategically position us, so it's when I'm sitting there on the laptop, I'm still kind of see Martha, still see Georgia, but quite lucky. Georgia's at an age where she wants to just go and play with her pals, and Martha just wants to lie there and read a book, and I do what I do.
Gives you peace and quiet to deal with the important stuff, which is the recruitment of Livingston FC. But we'll take a look back at last season to start off with. Now, I know last year when you were on with myself, you kind of mentioned pre-season was just disrupted probably a little bit in terms of organising friendlies. You had a wee bit of difficulty, a couple were cancelled, but still managed to progress out of League Cup section. 3 wins from those games and a solid start to the league campaign. 7 wins, 2 draws from the opening 15 before the World Cup break. You must have been pretty pleased with how the season had started off, David.
Yeah, probably pre-season not so much. We had a couple of friendlies where I felt we were really disappointing. In the group section, managed to qualify, which is really the objective at the end of the day. So gradually got a wee bit better as the season went on, and then into the league section where I felt we picked up some big points in big games. So the first half of the season, fairly happy with where we were, but again, consistency's probably out with the top 3, maybe even if you look at the top 3 this year, it was probably for third down, it was probably consistency was missing from most clubs.
Yeah, I mean, you could look at Aberdeen, for example, probably just had that fantastic finish to the season, which got them to...
Hearts had a half-decent start, but again, it's the consistency part that's the hardest bit to get. And at a club our level, not even just our level, let's be honest. You look at Aberdeen down, I think you could look through every club and there's a moments of the season where they were inconsistent. So we had a good start to the season, to be fair. Thought we were a wee bit unfortunate. I don't think we picked up as many points as I felt we should have. Like, I don't know, last year seemed to be... We never really stole many games. I think Aberdeen here 2-1, I can remember thinking, we got away with one there. I thought they battered us the second half, but they came away with 3 points. So you come in, you go, we got away with one there, but when I look back to other games, like Ross County here 1-0, Motherwell away, the handball, St Mirren away, 10 men in the penalty, Hearts at this turn of the year, the penalty playing against 10 men. It just, I don't know, it just never quite fell in our favour. The wee moments, and I felt we should have been sitting on potentially 5 or 6 more points than what we actually went into the winter break with. And I don't think, talking about the games that I'm referring to, I don't think anybody could really argue with that. But bar the Aberdeen game, I can't remember a game where I felt we were lucky. There was more the element of unlucky than being lucky. So,
yeah, I would absolutely agree with you there. In particular, I look back at the Ross County game and it was the ultimate sucker punch, wasn't it? We'd absolutely bossed them, missed a couple of unbelievable chances, and then they just hit us with a counter-attack and it's 1-0 with 15 minutes to go.
it was a difficult game. Motherwell, before VAR, a handball that the officials apologised for after. Never a handball, it's a 0-0, you've got a point. St Mirren, we've got to take a minimum point, but we probably should win the game.
Yeah.
Hearts at Tynecastle's got to be 3 points. Like, I thought it was about 3 penalty awards on Joel Newbley in that passage of play that led to Hearts' goal, but the big man never went down. We missed a penalty there into 10 men before that. So I were probably roughly 5 points off of where I felt we should have been.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned there a few decisions and things like that going against us or for us, etc. But VAR was introduced just before the World Cup break. I know you were an advocate for it when I spoke to you last year. How have you found the introduction of VAR?
I think it went through major teething problems. I think there was a period in the season where every handball was a penalty.
Well, the Aberdeen game you talked about, that was absolutely ridiculous, wasn't it?
It's horrible as a coach. Like, you're standing at the side of the park and every set play going in your box, you're like, it's a nightmare, an absolute nightmare. This isn't football. So it went through a period where it was really unjust. It was sully to a point. There was a couple of sending offs that I don't think were sending offs without VAR. I look at Holt, I look at Pittman, and then I look at other challenges that are no yellow sending offs. So I was frustrated. But I think if overall in the season, I think I've got to be honest, I'm still an advocate of VAR. I think it leads to us getting more decisions right than we get wrong. I think it gets misused at times. There was a couple of decisions, can't remember offhand exactly what, where I felt the referee should have had the opportunity to go and look at the monitor when the ref was not asked to look at the monitor. But I dare say every manager's probably the same as me. You think it's against you. You think it's only you this happens to, but it probably happens to all of us, to be honest.
Yeah, you kind of mentioned a couple of challenges. One that springs out for me was the foul on Nicky Devlin at Tynecastle, a challenge, I think it was by Alex Cochrane.
Oh my God.
And he didn't get referred to the monitor. Holby and Pittman's, he gets sent to a monitor, for example, and neither of those are red cards.
That was bizarre, right? Because if let's say it's a red card, right, with VAR, so he should be asked to go and look at the monitor. He doesn't get asked, but he gives him the throw-in. So the rationale behind that, you're going, how can it be that possibly be Hearts' throw-in? Like, it can't be, it possibly can't be. So you're telling me the man never hit the ball. So if the man never hit the ball, it's a yellow card, or you're going to look at the monitor for a red. But again, there was a few of the decisions I felt last year that kind of went against us.
The team managed to get away during the World Cup break, went away to Turkey, and you returned home with the Titanic Cup. How does it feel to be the first Livi manager to bring home European silverware?
Never thought about that. I might put that on my CV. Aye. No, listen, it was brilliant. The Lipaja game, we were by far the better team. They had played a lot of trialists. They must have travelled with 50 players because we were all in the same hotel.
Yeah.
I think, honestly, they must have travelled with 40, 50 players. I think 10 of them had been in trial with us in the summer. So we done well, won that game fairly comfortable. But going into the Fortuna game, the lads were brilliant. Honestly, they were fantastic. And Fortuna were absolutely raging that we beat them. I mean, raging. They thought
So the translations on Twitter, it seemed a bit
it was
salty.
a bit
Salty.
it was a wee bit feisty. So it was good to get that. It was a really, really good game of football. And I remember Big Joel in that game. The boys were brilliant, but he absolutely terrorised them. And I can remember thinking, Fortuna, they should have been on the phone to me. Like I was doing that with TS Galaxy with wee Teto. Like, you know what I mean? So it was good to get away. It served its purpose. We got a couple of really good games in, good training sessions in, and we came back and we'll be back for going away this summer probably. So it's just strange, because I don't think we had a good summer break when we went away in the summer. It was a wee bit disrupted, but we had an actually no bad start to the season. Whereas the winter break, it was really well worthwhile when we came back, and we were really inconsistent after that.
Yeah, as you mentioned, the team came back and at the end of January had an unbeaten January, in fact, sitting fourth place and well in the mix for both kind of top six and European football. Was there ever a point where the objective had maybe shifted amongst yourself and the group? Or I know you're very much an advocate of kind of 10th and above is the overall aim.
Nobody sit and tell lies. Like, we need to stay in the Premier League, but there's points within the season, there's key milestones within the season where you reevaluate your objectives. So I think at that point it's securing top six. I don't think you can get too far ahead of yourself. It's securing top six, and if you can do that, then your next objective in these 5 games is, can we get European football? So yeah, the aim was top six, and we just fell a wee bit short, if I'm honest, Euan. Couple of injuries. I don't think we had a settled back four. Couple of big noobs had a wee bit of injuries. I just don't think we had enough to get us over the line.
Yeah, now also kind of, as is the case at Livingston, there's always kind of changes in personnel, but we saw Marvin Bartley move on, take the job at Queen of the South in January. Was it a bit bittersweet seeing Marv go? Because I know obviously you had a very good working relationship with Marv, but it's obviously a good opportunity for him to go and
to be fair, I'd touted Marv 3 or 4 times to 3 or 4 different clubs in terms of when there was jobs available, have a look at Marv. I was very honest with Marv when I first sat down with him. Come in, I want you to be my captain. I'll try and get you on the coaching staff. We'll see how it goes, and we'll see how we get on with one another. Luckily enough, with very, very similar values, we see football in the same way. Obviously, differences there, but he was a fantastic captain for me. I got on very well with him. He's a friend. So I was eager to see Marv do well, and I've got to always remind myself is the unique selling point when I'm talking to players or coaches or whoever it may be is come in and use me as a stepping stone. No with Marv it wasn't, but with players it's a difficult conversation when a player comes in, does really well for you, and you're trying to get them to re-sign another year, but they're saying, I want to move on, I want to earn more money, and I want to be running out in front of 20,000 fans every week. Do you know what I mean? I want to be playing in Europe. I want to try and get to cup finals. And I know we've done some of those objectives, but the probability and the chances of doing that at Hearts, Hibs and Aberdeen, at Rangers, Celtic's a lot greater than what it is at Livingston. So you've always got to remind yourself why staff and why players kept coming to the club. It's to give them a kind of stepping stone to a better level.
Yeah, and I take it you obviously think Marv's going to go on to bigger things. Certainly, we've had him on the podcast, and as you mentioned, he's a very good communicator. He had a big passion for going into coaching as well. So I can only imagine that you would expect him to go on and do very well.
Yeah, I expect Dougie to go and do well. I expect Foxy to go and do well. Like, there's a lot of people, Tony Craig, Stuart Garden. There's a lot of people. Euan Blondin this year's away to Hearts. He's my first team analyst for 3 or 4 years. So Christoph Berer. So you build relationships, not just with like Marvin, your assistant players. we're very good at developing staff and players and moving them on and seeing their futures grow, and we played a small part in that. And for me, that's what Livingston really is, to be honest. Even go and look at Derek White, Dale now at Hibs, and Andy Ferguson's now working at Burnley. So it's not just the players that actually progress and move on, it's the staff as well. And we've had this season alone, well, Christoph's budget cuts. We had to cut the budget by £200,000, so that's been done. Christoph was last in, first out, so to speak, and I mean that in the nicest possible way. So I've lost a coach this season, and I lost Nicky Devlin, me, Steph, and Fitzy, who are three big players, and then Andy Ferguson, who has been helping me at the club on and off, like part-time and full-time now. We lost Andy to Burnley, and then Euan, who was the first team analyst, who knows how I work implicitly on a daily basis. I lost Euan. So I've also, as a part of that, you've got to re-coach your staff as well into how you want to work and how the club works and into your environment. So it's been a difficult summer, to be fair, in terms of recruitment, and not just for players.
Yeah, now going back onto kind of last season, from February onwards, it's safe to say there was a pretty drastic dip in form, especially away from home. Now, this would probably be the contributing factor to just narrowly missing out on top six. Is there anything in particular, Davie, that you can put that down to, in particular away from home? Because it seemed to be really night and day.
I think we're a victim of our own circumstances slightly, in terms of people are now expecting you to win games of football because you had a good start to the season. For me, am I really bored where I pick my points up? No, really. It's a marathon, it's not a sprint. 2 years ago, we had a horrific start of the season, but finished strong. For me, and I'll go back to consistency, we were really, really inconsistent, but I thought we were, how do I put this in a nice way in a podcast? But we were pretty weak away from home in terms of our physicality, our individual duels. We weren't good enough. We'd lost Big Isle, and I think it had a wee bit more of an impact than I felt it would. We'd brought boys into the building. Big Morgan had been injured the year before. He never quite hit the ground running. Big Luigi came in. There was still an adaptation period in there. So that inconsistency, you probably lose a wee bit of confidence. You lose a wee bit of momentum on the back of results. And to be fair, you're then going into a summer window where, I'll use Nicky as an example. You've got players who are out of contract in the summer. You've got players that are not. Now, Nicky was offered a contract, but you've got players you've not offered contracts to. So you lose a wee bit of that desire in the changing room also. And I don't mean that with Nicky Devlin, because I trusted Nicky implicitly. But you've got players that are going on to sign with other clubs. You've got players that have not been offered new contracts. You lost Joel through an injury, you lost Io through an injury. And I think the players that came in to try and replace him never quite hit the same levels that the players that had dropped out of the team. So I think there was mitigating circumstances that played a part in that as well. And all I can really say is we were 3 points worse off than what we were last year, but the season before was a great season. I think you've got to put it into perspective, but I do understand the emotions because I go through them. I go through them as well. It's difficult at the end of the season when you're trying to put it into perspective, but now going into a new season, I think I'm probably a wee bit more pragmatic on the end of last season. Yeah. And I look at it and go, right, we're all disappointed we never got top six. I totally understand that. We never got European football, but you know what? We stayed in the league comfortably. And really, that is the main objective every year. The main objective is, and I think it's important we don't lose sight of that. And that's not me being under not having ambitions. I've got ambitions, the team's got ambitions.
It's a reality. It's a reality when you look at it in terms of...
It's reality at the end of the day. I speak about budgets and that, right? You go about the top teams in the world. There's a reason why they're the top teams in the world. Where were Chelsea before Abramovich? Where were Man City before, is it Qatari money or Saudi Arabian money?
Yeah.
Like, where is PSG? Like, where all these... And look at Barcelona's demise slightly when the budget got cut over the pitch. So budgets to me play a huge part in football, and I think it's important we all realise it. we've got the lowest budget by a considerable distance, definitely this year, and we always punch above our weight. So I try and focus on the positives, but I do understand it from a fan's perspective because I'm a fan as well. Don't forget, I'm living and breathing that every moment as well with the players.
You kind of mentioned the parallels between last season and the season before, there only being a difference of 3 points, and one season was deemed a good season. It's just how probably the season's finished. You know, you go 6 games unbeaten 2 seasons ago at the tail end, and you go in with a little bit of a buzz going into the new season, whilst you come in off the back of kind of that run of form at the tail end of the season. So it almost puts you in that negative mindset, doesn't it?
I'm doing my pro license this year, and I've been on and off at the end of last year as well. And it's funny, you're sitting with some of the top sports psychologists of some of the biggest clubs in England, and they're sitting speaking to you about how most clubs out with the top 6, top 7 in England will go through periods of season where they've not picked any points up for 6 games, or they've not won any games in 8, but it's fairly normal. But over the split of 24 teams in a league, it's probably not highlighted as much because you go on a bad run, you're maybe sitting mid-table.
Yeah.
Or you've always been bottom, if you know what I mean. But and at Scottish football, it can change so much, and with 12 teams, it's heightened so much, isn't it? Like it's so passionate and so emotion. And I think that I'm not going to sit and tell that. I think this year's going to be a difficult year. I think I've been fairly vocal in saying that. But do I believe in what we've got in terms of staff and players? I do. Do I believe we can stay in the Premier League? I do. With a wee bit of luck, you just never know what can happen. But it's going to be a difficult season. We need the fans to get behind us, but try and do what I do. How to put this? Take it on a game by game basis. Like try not let the previous 3 games affect the next performance or your next emotions coming into the ground as a fan. I think it's important that at clubs our size we all try and get behind one another and just try and help the boys as much as we can on the park.
As you say, it would be an 8th place finish in the end. Overall, the objective of kind of finishing in that kind of safety first. Overall, how would you assess last season?
Decent start, disappointing end. Like just kind of being very, very simplifying it there. We're all disappointed, frustrated, disappointed by the ending, but really, really positive. And I'll probably take that right up to the Hearts game at Tynecastle. A very, very good performance away from home. Really disappointed we come away with a point. And then momentum and the confidence, it kind of just slipped, didn't it, February onwards. And then you had all our teams that had recruited probably a little bit better than us in the January window. And that had an impact to change their managers, and that probably had an impact on their form going forward. That's probably where I am with it, to be honest.
And what would you say was your highlight from last season, and what would you say is the biggest low point?
Biggest low point would have to be Dundee United away, match day 33. Thought it was a poor goal to lose. I thought we were the better team. Then we're that open and try to score, and Christian makes a mistake, who'd been one of our best players most of the season. Lose that in match day 33 after losing it in match day 33 the season before. That's probably one of the most disappointing aspects. Highlight, but also one of the biggest disappointments. Ibrox, 0-0. 1 each, sorry. That's probably lucky we got away with 1 each in the end, but we should have seen the game at 1-0. So
I think if we keep 11 men on the park, we do. Personally,
10 men for about 20 minutes, 9 men for about 10 minutes because Curtis is on the park injured and can't run basically. So so the highlight, yes, but it's also a disappointing aspect to that also.
Now, there was a couple of major kind of talking points amongst the fans last season. One would be probably the red cards. I think it was 11 red cards in all competitions. And then I think you'll probably know the next talking point was the penalty record last year. I think it was 6 missed from 9, if you include Nicky's retaking one, 7 from 10. How big an impact do you think these kind of moments had on the outcome of the season as well?
Good. There you go. You look at the penalties. You go 2-0 up at Tynecastle. There's another 2 points. Right? Because I don't think they come back with 10 men and draw 2 each. Right? St Mirren. Massive one was Ross County.
I'm trying to think where the other
That's
missed penalties were.
Anyway,
Like Motherwell at home,
huge,
Nicky's missed one at
huge
Motherwell at home.
moments in games, and I've worked in them in training. I've designated penalty takers. I'm also a great believer in if a boy wants to take a pen, go for it. I don't want to be shouting on for the side of the park. Don't let him take a penalty when he's got the confidence to take that pen. I've let the boys decide in the park. I've decided in the changing room, and we've not really quite got that mix correct. Bruce has been choking to hit a pen, but he missed a pen a while back. Then he goes out on Saturday and misses a pen. We'll find a winning formula somehow, believe me.
I could actually see in your post-match at the weekend there, you just lost any idea of what you could possibly do with regards to the whole penalty thing.
Let's be honest, there's not a lot you can do. You can practice them. But see for me, practicing penalties in training, come on. It's totally different by hitting a penalty of 18,000 that you need it to go on to win. 55,000, 60,000. So it comes down to a wee bit of confidence as well. And making sure that man's on the park for the penalty.
Yeah.
So I'll come up with something. I think it's going to have to be done on a game-by-game basis, if I'm honest. Because at this point in time, there's no real strong candidate who's going to go up and hit that next penalty. I've got one in my head for Saturday. I know what I'm going to do for Saturday. So I'll take that decision out of the players' hands.
Putting yourself on.
Go put myself on. And I'll probably miss. Yeah. So I kind of know where I'm going with on Saturday. And then I'm a great believer in take the penalties until you miss.
And as with most seasons, especially at Livingston, we saw some players move on from the football club, including the likes of Nicky Devlin, Fitzy and Stefan Omiyonga. How big a miss are these guys going to be at the football club? I know in particular with Nicky, obviously being club captain the last couple of years as well.
Nicky's going to be a huge miss on and off the park. Fitzy was one of the players for me where he was on the team sheet if he was fit. So it was an area of the park where didn't really need to give too much thought. It was one less coaching position in terms of you give him information, the big man picked it up. It was a 7 out of 10 most weeks, if not a wee bit more. So it was an area of the park we tried and tested and knew you were getting. And Steph was a great player for us. I knew there was certain games suited Steph and there was certain games didn't suit Steph. So maybe never played as much as he hoped last year. But again, the team was going through a good bit of form at the time as well, up until the turn of the year. So they're going to be big misses for us. I think we've recruited well enough. Whereas I brought players in that I'm hoping, and I think there's not going to be a huge adaptation period, because that's a big one. I'm big on continuity. And we've lost a lot of continuity from those 3 players you just spoke about.
Yeah, and looking ahead to this season, you've made it well known in the press and the media about the budget cuts. What has caused there to be such a drastic cut in the budget? I know the accounts were released and there was quite a significant loss made, but can you maybe shed a little bit more light for the fans on where that's come from?
You've got to remember where we've been. There was 2 years of probably no fans with COVID in the building. We paid every player single wage. Yes, we tried to reclaim as much back as we could for furlough. So your accounts is based on the previous 12 months. So in the previous 12 months, you've got the overhang of COVID. Then without kicking a ball last year, we had the Scottish Government loan repayment that we took. There's £100,000 a year. And you've got VAR. There's £100,000 a year. So before you kick a ball, there's £200,000 right now. See at a club our size, where do we get that from? And we lost. We probably were sitting at the tail end of last year. Season ticket numbers hadn't really increased. And we'd lost, or we had around the 400 grand of commercial advertising still to sell that never got sold. So that's when the tail end of companies coming out of COVID themselves. So I think you're going to see a tight year this year again. So you had the 200 grand that we can't do nothing about. We had a loss of revenue in terms of the commercial side of it and the fan base. And I don't mean this against the Livingston fans, I promise you. But the fan base hasn't been growing year on year.
Yeah.
So wages grow year on year. Do you think there's a player Chatsma going has to sign a new contract? But I'll just take the same wages, Gaffer. I've then got staff. I lose enough players and I lose enough staff to other clubs because you get paid more money. So you get to a point where it's you've got to balance it off. Do I give, i.e., and this is just a name, do I give Scott Pittman more money to keep him out of the club? Because of what I know he can give me on the park. He knows me inside out. He knows what I require. So you got to remember, there's also the players' wages that nobody's ever come to you and signing for the same money. So there's the turnover went down and the overheads increased for the reasons that I've just explained, and it's going to be very similar this year.
That's obviously impacted in terms of pre-season preparations. You mentioned not being away this year, everything's been done at home. Have you still managed to get the same time with the players? Because I know you're a big advocate of the trips away because you're living in each other's pockets, especially for the new guys coming in.
If I had a choice, I'd rather be away. But if you've done enough
Get
work,
a bit of sun, don't you?
it's just a different working environment. It's hard to explain to you. Yeah, you're in here and you're doing the same things. You're probably not doing it as much. You're not having breakfast, lunch, and dinner together. You're not sitting at night doing your analysis constantly. It's very, very difficult for me to keep the players at Livingston for 12 hours a day, 7 days. Like, it's not going to happen. It can't physically happen, but when you go away, you get to do that, and you're playing some games. So your training sessions 2-3 times a day. So you can replicate it to a certain degree, but it's not 100% accurate.
Yeah, and as every summer goes, there's been comings and goings. There's been a few new arrivals in the building. Mikey Devlin, Mo Sangari, Michael Nottingham, Miles Welsh, also expecting a deal for Afalele Teto to be completed as well. What can you tell us about the new arrivals, and is there any more in the pipeline for yourself, Davie?
I would like to bring one more offensive player in. I'm hoping that there's maybe 2 chat my door and move on. I think we need that to happen. We need to try and cut the budget, but there's 2 or 3 players that have been told they probably need to look elsewhere if they want to play first team football. So ideally, I'd lose 2 or 3 players and bring 1 or 2 in, but ideally, I want to bring 1 more in the offensive area. Teto's a magnificent signing for us. He's still got to get his work permit, but he's probably one that I'm not sure a 20-year-old young lad from Africa is going to hit the ground running. There's going to be a certain level of adaptation from him, but he is 100% different from what we've got, and he's the best 20-year-old kid in an offensive area that I've ever seen. So there's high hopes for him going forward. Mick Devlin's just a leader. You get what you see in your tin. If Mick never had his injuries over the last couple of years, he wouldn't be at Livingston, plain and simple.
Well, very recently he's been capped under Steve Clarke for Scotland, hasn't he? So it just tells you the level of player that you have got through the door.
He's no. So it's about us again. You're always recruiting someone who needs a lot of coaching, who we can get in a better condition, look after them in terms of their rehab, the processes we've got at the club. So you're always recruiting someone with, I don't mean a problem, but there's always a wee bit of background there, a wee bit of history there. Mo Sangari, young lad, or youngish, he never started playing football. He was 16, so although I say young, I think he's 25, 26, but he's not got a lot of first team football under his. But I looked at Mo as a similar type to Steph.
Yeah.
Michael Nottingham's came in, does what he says in the tin. No nonsense centre half, understands the game, 34-year-old, very, very fit, very, very athletic, but brings a wee bit of leadership. And I felt at the tail end of last season, we missed a little bit of that. We missed a wee bit of physicality, missed a wee bit of leadership. And I thought we got bullied in games when we were playing against teams with 2 up top. Go back to the Motherwell game, go back to the St Mirren game. I thought they bullied us slightly, and I don't think we stood up to that test very well. So I've tried to rectify that this season. I'm trying to think who else. Miles has came in. We lost Nicky. We've got Jamie Brandon in the building. Miles has come in. He's probably in Jamie's shoes where Jamie was last year. Jamie was trying to take the jersey off of Nicky. Miles will probably try to take the jersey off of Jamie, albeit I've got Christian and Pennis who can both play off the right-hand side also. So fairly happy with the recruitment. Fairly happy we've kept the nucleus of the squad for last year, albeit we've lost 3 big players for us.
And you also announced that Mikey Devlin would be captain for the season as well. but you've also mentioned about having a senior leadership group. Now, is that maybe something to help combat the fact that you've lost a member of your backroom team in terms of a coaching sense, giving the players that little bit extra responsibility?
Yeah, but it's giving them a wee bit of responsibility, but it's allowing them to have that responsibility. So I felt maybe something last year, I was very vocal in the way I manage. I'm trying to take a wee bit of a step back in that terms to allow the changing room to grow. So we all talk about there's not enough leaders in football, but how do you create that leader if you're being that leader? You've got to allow others to lead. Yeah. So I'm trying to approach it slightly different this year. You'll see for the recruitment with Mick Devlin and Michael Nottingham, you've brought a wee bit of experience into the building, which is huge. It's huge for us. And I spoke to Mick Devlin's the captain. I think Sean Kelly's going to be the understudy, and you're going to grab 2 players at a time and work it out and go through various points at what they're expecting. I would like them to be a wee bit more hands-on in the changing room. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The changing room's probably been overseen by the staff historically. I'd like the players to take control and set the standards and put the demands on the one another on a daily basis.
And as you mentioned kind of previously, whilst we've been chatting, there's also been a number of changes in your backroom staff as well. Also at boardroom level, with John Ward and Dave Black taking up new roles and Robert Wilson moving on as well. How's everyone been settling in, and what do you reckon kind of your new staff can bring to the roles?
Well, I think Dave especially, it's a huge help for me. John's been a volunteer at the club for years, and he was in the club 1 or 2 days a week. He was always on the phone and emails, but Dave's here day to day. Yeah. So we spend a lot of time with one another on the day-to-day running of the club, so it helps me hugely. John's taken up the role as chairman, so we've kept that continuity, and he'll support Dave at board level. So Dave's kind of going to be a wee bit of the buffer between me and the board, and downstairs and upstairs, so to speak. So yeah. Dave probably done a lot of these duties anyway. If John wasn't in the building, so it's just kind of a title. His job's changed slightly, but as it is at Livingston, we'll do 3 or 4 different jobs. It's not really going to change how we operate. It's just nice to have Dave probably been recognised a little bit more, if I'm honest. And in terms of the backroom staff, we've lost our coach, but between myself and Nearly and Stretch, I've done it for years, done it myself with Hoppy for years, me and Halty for years. So it's not really any different to what it was previously in terms of we had Dougie and we had Christoph. So been here, done it. So it doesn't phase us. So me, Nearly and Stretch will take care of the on-field stuff. We've had to bring in a new analyst. So I brought an Italian boy, Eugenio Senna, in to try and bring fresh eyes into Scottish football.
Yeah.
I think it can become a wee bit mundane at times. You're playing the same teams 3-4 times a season, potentially 5 times a season. So I think it was important to bring a fresh set of eyes into Scottish football. So Eugenio will support the staff as well going forward.
Now, certainly from the pre-season games that we've seen, it's been clear that you've made a tweak to the shape that we've been playing. We've gone to a back 3 in those games. What's been the thinking about that change in shape?
I'm not telling you, and you should have been listening to this interview. You tell me.
Make us more difficult to beat, essentially.
Well, you look at a lot of the clubs in the Premier League now, right? They're playing 2 up top. Yep. Games became very direct, very physical, very aggressive. I don't think we dealt with that very well at the turn of the year last year. I thought we got bullied a little bit. I thought we were weak. I think it's difficult in terms of your transition at times in a back 4 playing against 2 strikers. It becomes very, very difficult. You're coming up to the game against Aberdeen, 2 strikers up top. So there's a lot of teams now playing against the 2. So you're looking at 1, how do we get bigger? How do we get better at set plays for and against? Pretty obvious how you do that. How do we get better at keeping clean sheets? Because that is one major sticking point that irks me from last year for January onwards, is the amount of clean sheets. We built the foundations of the club on being difficult to beat, and I think we went away for that slightly. I want to get back to that. So by having 3 big centre halves, it gives me the opportunity to match up against teams at times. I think it makes us a wee bit more solid in and out of possession, and it set plays against and set plays for can be vital in winning your games of football or losing your games of football. And the patterns they play aren't overly different, and I'll keep that to myself how I tweak that I can fluctuate to a back four very, very easily.
Yeah, and you mentioned about kind of those defensive frailties from last season. How encouraging has it been to have gone, if you include pre-season games as well, 9 games, only 2 goals conceded in those 9 games? That must be incredibly pleasing in terms of how we're settling into this new way of playing.
The clean sheets, but listen, don't fool ourselves with the level of the opponent. And I don't mean that disrespectful to anybody, but we've got to look at the level of the opponent. But you can only get the clean sheet with what's in front of you. So we've played Rangers and managed to go there and get a clean sheet as well. Obviously in a pre-season friendly. But for me, the foundations of this football club has been difficult to beat. And how do we get back to doing that? So we need defenders that want to defend, that are hard to beat. And we'll work on the rest of it as we go up the park. I'm fairly confident. I trust in my own abilities. But clean sheets, that's the staple for winning games of football. I think in the Premier League, the first goal is hugely important in the Premier League.
Well, you look at our record from last season. I think it was 4 points from losing positions last year, which tells you how important that is.
Yeah, Dundee United was Christian, Kilmarnock, Christian set play, Hearts, Christian set play. There's another one at the start. Who was it? But if
Johnston 1-0 at home.
1-0
Dylan scored.
We had deflection.
Yeah.
But if you even look at, that's the 1-0 victories, but if you throw in the set plays at one, you're at maybe 9 points at the start of the season. It's absolutely crucial that you're difficult to beat. You can stay in games, you're not giving cheap goals away, and then that goes and gives you a foundation to go on and win the game. As
we kind of mentioned, we have been back in competitive action as well in the League Cup and progressed with 3 wins and a draw. What did you make of the performances from those games, Davie? And do you think it set us up pretty well for kicking on into the league campaign?
I think the Hamilton game was a wee bit disappointing. I don't think we started well for 30 minutes. They scored, then we dominated the game. Unlucky not to win that game, but I'm not really overly fussed in terms of we won the group section and we're in the next round, so to speak. I think that's been 8 years since I've come into the club. This is my 10th season. I think that's now 8 years we've qualified from the group stages, and that's through League One days. So it's not like we're just the Premiership team. We've been the League One team. We've been the Championship team. We're now the Premier League team. So it's massive kudos to everybody in the building, not just myself, the players, past and present, and all the staff.
And that set up a last 16 tie with Ayr United. Actually echoes back to your first game in charge in the dugout, wasn't it? Last 16 tie with Ayr in the League Cup. Given the budget, what was that?
Who was the striker for Ayr?
Who was the striker?
Who was the boy?
Oh God, I can't mind.
Bruce
Who was it? Oh, it was Bruce, wasn't it? Jesus.
We're talking about it today, actually.
I bet he wasn't hearing you shout as much at him though.
I paid him a compliment. Say, Bruce, I can't even remember you playing.
But as I say, that set up that kind of repeat of your first game in the dugout at Livingston. But budget situation at the club, you've got to be looking to try and progress because that's impacts on the finances as well, progressing in the cup competitions.
Budget, no budget, win bonus, no win bonus. We want to win every game of football that's in front of us. So I try no the external factors. I don't really buy into them. I just want to progress in the cup. We want to win that game of football. And the budget and the money it brings is just kind of icing on the cake.
And up next is our opening Premiership game of the season at home to Aberdeen. Now, how are you feeling ahead of the campaign in general, Davie? Do you feel the team's in a good place going into the opening game?
No, I think every manager's the same as me. You're 2 or 3 players short.
Never happy.
Always 2 or 3 players short. I think it's going to be just like any other. You're going to it with a wee bit of trepidation. Like you don't know what it's going to bring. But I think with my experience in terms of I know the Premier League inside out, I think we've got enough in the building to stay and be competitive in the Premier League. Yep, I do. Do I think it's going to be plain sailing? Nope, I don't. And I think it's going to be a bit of a roller coaster, 100%.
It wouldn't be any other way at Livingston, would it? That's the way of it.
I generally don't think it's Livingston. If you were to look around any club with the Old Firm, I think it's fairly similar. I generally do think it's fairly similar.
And I reckon I know what the answer will be to this, but what is the kind of overall objective for the campaign? And have you got a message for the fans ahead of the opening league game?
Yeah, try and get behind the boys. I've kind of said it there. It's not going to be plain sailing. It's going to be a roller coaster, but we need your help. It's hugely important when you're playing and you're in the dugout and the fans are behind you. The extra motivation is incredible. So I know it can be frustrating at times. We're going to lose games of football. We're going to go on winless runs. We're not going to win games for X amount of time. We're not going to score in so many games. Try and put it all into perspective and get behind the boys, because we definitely need it, and it makes a huge difference to the players. The objective is staying in the Premier League. Staying in the Premier League, and I need to make sure Dave's first gig as the chief executive is not to get relegated.
Oh, that would kill Dave, wouldn't it? As a fan from day one, wouldn't it? His first.
Oh, so it's going to. I think Dave's going to have a harder season than me.
Well, Davie, it's been an absolute pleasure as always having you back on the podcast, and from myself and Angus, wish the whole team the best of luck for the season ahead.
Right, thanks guys. Thank you very much.
Livingston, oh Livingston, the Almonville Lions roar. Livingston, oh Livingston, we realize our vision. Livingston, oh Livingston, into the Premier League.